Global attention has turned sharply towards Nigeria following remarks by US President Donald Trump hinting at possible military intervention. The comments have triggered diplomatic tension and raised serious questions about investor confidence, foreign capital flows. Hello and welcome to MarketSquare, your go-to show for deep insight into business and economic trends. I'm Olaitan Adebayo, and today we are diving into key developments across Nigeria. Stay with us. Welcome back to Market Square. The recent trends of military action against Nigeria made by the US President Donald Trump has sparked concern across diplomatic and economic circles. While the claim has been dismissed by the Nigerian authorities as baseless, its ripple effects are already visible, particularly in how it shapes investor perception and financial market sentiment. The Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise, in a policy brief, warned that even the mere threat of military intervention carries serious economic and perceptional risks for Nigeria. Its Director General, Muda Yusuf, noted that such rhetoric, especially coming from a global political figure, could unsettle financial markets, erode investor confidence, and harm Nigeria's image as a stable investment destination. And that concern is not misplaced. Nigeria's economy is highly sensitive to global narratives. Investors, both foreign and domestic, react swiftly to any signal of political instability. A statement like this, regardless of accuracy, can trigger capital flight as investors move their assets to safer markets. This in turn could weaken the naira and strain the country's already fragile fiscal balance. Foreign direct investments, which Nigerians desperately need to drive growth and industrial development, could also take a hit. Multinational companies that were considering entry or expansion might decide to pause, while those already operating may scale down investment or delay projects until the situation feels more predictable. That means fewer jobs, slower growth, and higher uncertainty for businesses already struggling with rising production costs and infrastructure bottlenecks. The stock market would not be spared either. Heightened risk perception often leads to volatility, with investors dumping local assets in favor of safer instruments abroad. Bond yields could rise as the government struggles to borrow at higher costs, and Nigeria's external reserves could fall due to pressure on foreign exchange demand. All these factors combine to increase inflation, weaken purchasing power, and complicate monetary policy management. It's also important to look at the diplomatic side. Nigeria has long projected itself as a stabilizing power in West Africa. Any perception of US hostility could undermine that image and weaken regional cooperation. Beyond that, global development institutions and trade partners tend to be cautious when political rhetoric turns aggressive, and that could affect Nigerians' ability to negotiate future aid or investment support. The CBP rightly pointed out that Nigerian security challenges are complex and multidimensional, ranging from insurgency and banditry to farmer either clashes and communal violence. These issues, though serious, are not government engineered as some foreign claims suggest. Misinterpreting them as signs of state complicity not only distorts the picture, but risks worsening the international misunderstanding. For Nigeria, the path forward must rest on diplomacy, not confrontation, engaging directly with the US government to clarify facts, strengthen intelligence cooperation, and reassure global investors of the country's stability will be essential. At the same time, internal governance reforms, greater transparency, macroeconomic discipline, and security sector accountability will help restore confidence from within. A single statement amplified on global stage can shake economic confidence and threaten years of policy efforts. For an economy still trying to rebuild investor trust, Nigeria cannot afford to let speculation or external narrative define its economic destiny. This moment is a reminder that economic strengthening is not only built through fiscal and monetary policy, but also stability, diplomacy, and consistent communication. From the uncertainty surrounding the US military threat and its ripple effect on Nigeria's economic stability, attention now shifts to a major funding breakthrough for the agricultural sector. Amid mounting pressures to revive local production and curb food inflation, the federal government has secured a $500 million loan from the World Bank to power agricultural transformation agenda. This is not just about more money for farming. It's part of a broader strategy under President TINUBU's renewed agenda to drive food security, rural industrialization, and long-term economic resilience. The loan is embedded in the World Bank's larger AgriConnect initiative, a 6-year, $14 billion program designed to connect all moving parts of the agricultural ecosystem, from farmers and processors to markets and financial institutions. The idea is to close persistent gaps in smallholder farming, improve aggregation of farmers, and build efficient value chains. If managed well, the funds could transform farming into a real business. Minister of Agriculture and Food Security Abubakar Kyari stated that the facility will support not just production, but also processing capacity, market access, and financial inclusion for micro, small, and medium enterprise in key crops. By better linking farmers with processors and markets, the project aims to drive sustainable agribusiness growth while reducing dependence on raw commodity sales. This intervention matches neatly with government's effort to develop special agro-industrial processing zones, a policy push to build industrial clusters in rural areas, creating value-adding factories close to where crops are grown. There is also a clear push towards economic inclusion too. Youth and women in rural communities could benefit most, both as farmers and as agribusiness entrepreneurs. From the World Bank side, the project named the Agriculture Value Chains for Growth is pitched as more than just grant money. According to their delegation, the goal is to unlock Nigerians' agribusiness potential, boosting productivity, creating jobs, and making farming more commercial than subsistence. But while the promise is huge, the risks are equally real. For the funds to deliver long-term impact, strong governance structures are very vital. Transparency, organized farmer groups, and effective oversight will be the key. The minister has also highlighted the importance of accountability and farmer participation to prevent misuse and ensure that the money reaches where it's most needed. On the macroeconomic front, this could be a game changer. Targeted investment in value chains can help Nigeria reduce its food import bill, increase export potential, and catalyze growth of agro-processing industries. If value is added at home, more rural jobs could be created, and the economy could benefit from both higher productivity and more diversified export earnings. Still, it's not enough to simply disburse money. The government, private sector, and farmers must all pull in the same direction. Without strong institutions and real commitment, the facility risks becoming another announcement rather than a transformative force. This is one of those rare moments where a larger loan aligns with a coherent long-term vision, not just to increase production, but to build a sustainable agricultural economy. If done right, it could help turn Nigeria's agriculture into a key engine for industrial development and inclusive growth. But the execution, accountability, and real value creation will determine whether this becomes a turning point or just another headline. As the nation looks to strengthen its food system, policymakers are also making moves to ease the tax burden on low-income earners and small business through new reforms set to take effect from 2026. Nigeria's tax system is about to undergo one of its most significant transformations in recent years, and this time it seems to tilt in favor of ordinary Nigerians. Starting from January 2026, the federal government plans to roll out a new tax regime that offers 50 exemptions and relief targeted at low-income earners and small businesses. The goal is very clear: to build a fairer, simpler, and more inclusive system that lightens the load on those who have long carried the weight of an uneven tax structure. The reforms developed under the Presidential Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms Committee, led by Taiwo Yedele, are designed to align Nigerians' tax policies with the realities of the people. For decades, taxation in Nigeria has often been viewed as punitive rather than developmental. But these new measures aim to shift that perception by linking taxation more closely with the ability to pay and ensuring that those earning the least are not squeezed the hardest. For individuals, the changes are quite substantial. Those earning the national minimum wage or less will fully be exempted from paying personal income tax. Beyond that, anyone earning 1.2 million naira annually will also enjoy full exemption. There's also room for relief through deductions such as pension contribution, housing funds, and insurance premiums. A welcome move at a time when many households are struggling to keep up with the cost of living. Rent relief of up to 20% of annual rent capped at 500,000 further reflect on the understanding of burden rising out costs have placed on urban workers. The reforms also touch on areas that have been overlooked. Retirement benefits, gratuities, and compensation for job loss will no longer be taxed, so long as they fall within a certain limit. The sale of personal assets such as homes or vehicles will also attract tax exemptions within reasonable thresholds. The kind of relief will not only encourage mobility and asset transfer, but also restore fairness to a system that often penalizes even the smallest financial transactions. Small business, often described as the backbone of Nigeria's economy, stand to gain the most. Companies with a turnover of less than 100 million naira and fixed asset below 250 million naira will be fully exempt from the corporate income tax. Startups and young enterprises, particularly those still in their early growth stage, will enjoy similar tax holidays. The idea is to help small firms reinvest profits, expand operations, and create jobs instead of being crippled by taxes before they even find their footing. Even more interesting is the introduction of compensation reliefs. Businesses that give salary raises, bonuses, or transportation allowance to low-income employees will be eligible to deduct up to half of those costs from their taxable income. The same applies to employers who hire and retain workers for at least 3 years, a move that could encourage long-term employment and reduce the rate of staff turnover, especially in this SME space. Agriculture and essential sectors also receive a boost. Crop farming, livestock, and dairy production now qualify for a 5-year tax holiday, an incentive that could help revive Nigerian struggling agricultural output and enhance food security. Small enterprises are also exempt from certain levies and withholding taxes, reducing bureaucratic stress and administrative costs. On the consumption side, the reform seeks aim at everyday spending, essential goods and services such as food items, healthcare, education materials, and pharmaceuticals will either be VAT-free or attract zero-rated VAT. Small businesses with an annual turnover below 100 million naira won't need to charge VAT at all. Even baby products, sanitary items, agricultural inputs, and electric vehicle parts are on the exemption list, signaling a shift towards protecting consumer welfare and encouraging sustainable innovation. The government has also addressed the rising cost of digital transactions by scraping stamp duties on smaller electronic transfers below 10,000 naira, as well as intrabank and salary payments. This is particularly relevant in a country where more people are now operating within the digital economy and where every naira saved from transaction charges can make a real difference. While the reforms are people focused, they are not without risks. Removing or reducing taxes for a large segment of the population could put pressure on government revenue, especially if compliance and tax collection efficiency does not improve. To avoid shortfalls, the federal government will need to balance relief with reforms in enforcement and public education. If citizens don't understand the reforms or trust the process, compliance levels could remain low. The bigger picture suggests optimism. For once, Nigerian tax conversation is moving beyond punishment and towards participation. The new tax system reward effort, encourages entrepreneurship, and acknowledges that taxation should not be a burden, but a partnership between government and the people. The tax reform package, alongside the recently enacted Nigerian Tax Act and other fiscal laws, marks a turning point in the country's economic policy. It's a shift towards fairness and inclusion, one that could redefine how Nigerians perceive and interact with the tax system. Nigeria is betting on a simple truth that when citizens feel seen, heard, and treated fairly in taxation, they are more likely to contribute willingly. While policy evolves, Nigeria's power sector continues to grapple with huge losses, a reminder of the cost of inefficiency. Nigeria's power sector is once again in the spotlight, this time for all the wrong reasons. Over the last 12 years, power generating companies known as Genco have lost more than 2.3 trillion naira due to power supply that could have been generated but never reached consumers. The problem, a fragile and outdated grid system that simply can't handle the load. Power plants generate electricity that is ready to go, but the national grid lacks the capacity to evacuate it. That means every megawatt left idle represents wasted money, wasted potential, and a deepening energy crisis. Between 2013 and 2025, Nigeria lost an average of 2,000 to 3,000 megawatts annually, enough to power millions of homes and businesses. At the heart of this problem lies structural inefficiency. Despite privatization in 2013, a movement to improve performance, the same old bottleneck remains. Transmission infrastructure is weak, payment systems are unreliable, and the legal basis between Gencos and the government has broken down. Generation companies maintain that while they produce enough power supply, transmission company of Nigeria can't take it all. The financial toll is staggering. Between January and September 2025 alone, the sector lost over 119 billion naira in capacity payments, money that could have been gone into maintaining plants, repaying loans, or expanding supply. Yet, despite these losses, Nigerians still face blackout and unstable power supply, while industries run on expensive diesel alternatives. This situation is more than a technical failure, it's an economic crisis. The Association of Power Generation Company estimates that a 1% increase in power supply could grow Nigerians' GDP by nearly 4%. That means if even half of the stranded power had reached industries and homes, the country could have recorded up to 10 to 12 GDP growth over the last decade. The effects are everywhere. Manufacturing firms are scaling down production due to inconsistent power. Small business spend heavily on generators. Foreign investors remain cautious, citing power infrastructure and policy inconsistency as major risks. And the government it continues to grapple with liquidity shortfalls and unpaid obligations across the power value chain. What Nigerians face is not a shortage of power, it's a crisis of evacuation and accountability. With over 10 gigawatts of installed generation capacity, the country still distributes less than half of that. Until the grid is expanded, transmission becomes reliable, and payment systems become transparent, the cycle of waste will continue, keeping the light of out for millions and dimming the prospect of economic growth. Stranded power is not just power loss, it's opportunity loss for growth, jobs, and development. From the ripple effects of the US military threat to Nigeria's economic stability to the federal government's $500 million agricultural boost, the unveiling of new tax exemptions for workers and small businesses, and the persistent challenges in the power sector, Nigeria's economy stands at a delicate point where sound policy, renewed hope, and real sector reforms will determine the direction forward. This is Market Scholar Adebayo. Thank you for watching and see you on the next one.